Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure for us to be here today for what I think is really an exciting advent into what will be a very exciting week, not only for the province of Saskatchewan, but for many folks that are employed in various industries in the province of Saskatchewan, and ultimately advancing our efforts in communicating with the world, the how. We all know what we produce in Saskatchewan, providing energy and food security for over 150 countries around the world, but really taking a period of time here to attend COP28 and to tell the how we produce our products from a sustainability and an environmental perspective. Before we start things here today, I want to just introduce the guests that we have with us. We have from Mosaic, Marnell Jones. We have, I thought we were going to have our nameplates. And to Marnell's left is Mike Crabtree from the Saskatchewan Research Council. To my right from Greenview Farms is Christian Hebert, and to Christian's right is Barb's Definition Cody from Black Fox Distilleries. And I'd like to say thank you to each of these individuals for joining us here today, and to them and their organizations for joining us in our delegation that will be attending COP28 in Dubai. Today is the day COP28, the United Nations Global Conference on Climate Change, begins. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, international climate change summits that is ever being held in the world. As outlined in this fall's speech from the throne that we had delivered, Saskatchewan is going to have a major presence at this event. Nearly 200 countries will be participating in COP28, and we'll be heading as well to the United Arab Emirates Conference later this week and into next week. This is a tremendous opportunity for us to not only tell Saskatchewan's story on the global stage, and the story is not only what we produce and providing the opportunity for food and energy security in over 150 countries around the world, but telling the how we produce those products from an environmental sustainability perspective. Our province, as we know, is very reliant on trade. We are one of the most trade-oriented provinces in the nation of Canada, which means sharing this story, sharing our story abroad, and forging those new international relationships, strengthening those international relationships that we already have, is actually crucial, very vital to creating jobs and opportunities here in Saskatchewan and communities from corner to corner, but also preserving the jobs and the opportunities that have been created here over the course of the last number of years. It's also essential work being done as we strive to meet our net zero goals here in Saskatchewan, to do things even more sustainably into the future. So sharing the pioneering history that we have in this province, we were just discussing some of that prior to coming out here, but also the pioneering history we have in producing some of the most environmentally sustainable goods that you can find on Earth today, whatever that product might be. We're also, I think, sharing in the innovation opportunities that we have are being developed in Saskatchewan, and sharing those innovation opportunities and learning from other countries that will be in attendance at this conference. And we had discussions about that in particular in the agriculture industry on the innovation that will be on full display, and some of those discussions that will happen. At the end of the day, what the government's role in this is to provide a platform. To provide a platform for 50 or 60 Saskatchewan-based organizations to tell their story about how they are producing some of the most sustainable products in the world, and why, if you're in the market to purchase those products, you should be having a very close look at purchasing from Saskatchewan. We have in this province the world's largest carbon capture and utilization and storage project. We have enhanced oil recovery that is helping us in driving our emissions down on a per barrel of oil basis. In fact, and you've heard me say this before, if the rest of the world produced heavy oil like we do in Saskatchewan, global emissions from oil production would drop 25% overnight. When it comes to our mining industry, we have some of the highest grade uranium that you can find on Earth. That uranium is being used for nuclear power, not only in Canada and North America, but being utilized in countries all around the world, offsetting emissions that ultimately would come from natural gas and coal-fired power plants as well. Some of the highest quality and most sustainable potash mines in the world are home to fortunately, the world's largest exporting region of potash in the world, which is Saskatchewan. Mosaic, among other countries, are operating those mines, as I said, the most sustainable mines in the world, mines that are producing potash with a 50% carbon content on a per ton basis relative to the next largest producers on Earth. Certainly ethical and sustainable product. In agriculture, our wheat and canola that we produce here in Saskatchewan using precision farming techniques, of which Christian can certainly share, using zero-till innovation that is pioneered in this province about 25 or 30 years ago and is largely the norm in Saskatchewan now. We are producing wheat and canola with about a 65% lower carbon content than the next 7 largest producers around the world. Certainly a great record, and a record that we are looking to tell the world, and how we in this province are climbing that value chain with those sustainable products that we produce. We have some of the cleanest and greenest products that you can find on Earth, and we are there to share the how and how those products are produced in Saskatchewan. The pavilion that we have is exactly that platform for industries that have an interest in Saskatchewan and are operating in Saskatchewan. We have over 50 Saskatchewan-based organizations that are going to have the opportunity in some way, shape, or form to share their stories and promote the expertise that they have, promote their products, promote their services, and share the innovations that they're using, and learn from others in other areas of the world about the innovations that they may be using in a very globally diverse audience that will be attending. There's I think over 200 countries that are attending COP28, and Saskatchewan most certainly will be there to show our wares, to share our wares, but to learn from other countries as well, and to be there, of course, in support of the Canadian presence and the Canadian initiative. COP28 certainly is a one-stop shop where the sole focus of all things in our pavilion is going to be a one-stop shop of what we are doing in Saskatchewan and what we are doing in Canada. We're very proud of the companies that are operating in our province, and it's imperative that we provide this platform so that the world can hear the how we are producing the products that we have. Attendance at events like COP28 will allow Saskatchewan leaders, as well as government officials from not only our province but across Canada, the opportunity to discuss advancements in sustainable agriculture, for example, and to discuss those opportunities with a range of world leaders that will also be in attendance, and a range of global companies that will also be in attendance. And we are facilitating any and all of those meetings that we can, in addition to the number of plenary sessions that we'll be hosting at our pavilion. As I said, this is a provincial government that is committed to the how. We are producing those sustainable products and sharing that story of how with the world. Our province depends on exports. I often talk about 70% of what we produce is exported globally. Last year, we broke records on this front, increasing the value, not only the volume, but the value of our exports, with $52.6 billion being exported from Saskatchewan. That was a record. It built on last year's number, which was also a record. And so we need to continue to build those international connections that we have, protect our market share, tell the how on how we are producing some of the most sustainable goods that you can find on Earth. And I personally am going to be very excited to share the plenary sessions and the stage and the panels with a number of different Saskatchewan companies, as well as some global companies that will be sharing those stages, as well as some political leaders from years gone by in Canada as well, in really helping share that Saskatchewan and the Canadian story of production. We'll have a dedicated web page, for our COP28 delegation. It'll be sustainablesk.ca, so sustainablesask.ca, sustainablesk.ca/COP28. It's now live as of a couple of minutes ago, and it highlights all of the events where Saskatchewan will be sharing our great story of sustainable Saskatchewan products with the world. Once again, extremely proud to be leading this delegation of so many entities that have roots in Saskatchewan, over 50 companies and organizations that are making this trip to help our province tell the story that we feel it is of utmost importance that the world is able to hear, to integrate and to innovate, ultimately share innovations with so many countries around the world. COP28 is going to provide us an excellent opportunity to meet with other government leaders, other industry leaders, other folks that are involved in innovation, particularly that pertains to the sustainable production of products on Earth. Opportunities like this to share that story of how we produce the products that we do is ultimately as well an opportunity at the end of the day for us to advance our growth agenda in this province and to advance the opportunity we have to attract that investment, create those jobs, provide residents of Saskatchewan with that opportunity to stay here in this province and to work in one of the industries in a community that maybe they were raised. It will strengthen our provincial economy, and it will help us build and protect the communities from corner to corner in Saskatchewan for generations to come. I think now we have a short video to play, and then I would ask each of our guests here today just to speak in a couple of minutes as to why they might be interested or why they're interested in attending COP28 and what it means to their business community or industry. So we'll start with the video. So that's one of the videos that we have. I believe they're all available on the website, are they, Kevin? Industry-specific videos. This particular one is specific to the energy industry. As I said, producing some of the most sustainable oil that you can find on Earth of its of a like product like what we produce here in Saskatchewan. We'll also have a short video displaying the pavilion where we will be holding the plenary sessions and meetings and such as well. But prior to getting to the questions, I'd just like to take a few minutes for each of the folks that have joined us here today, for them just to say a couple of minutes of why they feel this is important, either to the business community or to the industry that they're involved in. We'll start with Christian Hebert.
Yeah, so as Scott mentioned, I'm Christian Hebert. My farm's Hebert Grain Ventures in Moosomin, Saskatchewan. We believe COP28 is important because, as you heard before, we're an export province. And so as a farmer, I think we do a lot of complaining sometimes in agriculture of what our consumers and our customers think, and we don't do spend enough time telling them our story about what our definition of sustainability is and the practices we're using. So on our farm in particular, we literally have it hanging on the wall that our definition of sustainability is that the land, the financial statements, our community, and the industry are in a better state generation after generation. And in order to do that, we implement a number of practices that we hope we can share with the world, and not only share, but teach and learn as we're there. And practices such as zero till. I mean, I'm actually lucky enough to be right beside what they call Vaterstat now, but the seed hawk plant is we farm all the way around it, and you use Borgo, seed hawk, etc. Saskatchewan agriculture has been known to innovate in all of history. Precision agriculture, we're very blessed in Western Canada and in Canada to be able to implement many of the technologies around variable rate, zone maps, sectional control, and we continue to use those as we see return on investment. So, I think the big thing for us is just to be around our customers and our consumers globally, and to really share, that we are leading the world. Can we continue to improve? Absolutely. But right now we lead the world as a whole bunch of the statistics show, and we need the world to understand that, and hopefully they follow our story home to come learn about it even more here. I always joke that the best thing I can do is have global leaders and global CEOs and the people that want to buy our products have dirty fingernails, because that means they were in the field with me, and there's nothing more important on earth than dirt.
And Barb's definition, Cody, Barb and her husband John have actually intergenerational story of producing, as Christian does, some of the agri-food products that we're so familiar with, but have in the last decade or so moved to the other end of the value-added spectrum, and it's quite an exciting investment that they have embarked on as well.
So everyone knows that we are known worldwide for producing some of the best grains on the planet for bread and for pasta and for cookies. So why can't we produce the best gin and whiskey from that same grain and do it here? And that was the premise that we took when we decided to move away from a traditional commodity producing farm and produce something that was more value added and closer to the customer. We not only produce these magnificent grains and ingredients that we use in our own distilling operation, but we do it in a manner that is good for the planet. And just as Christian said, are we perfect? Absolutely not. We're working every day to be better. And I think that is the story of sustainability that we really want to get out there, that we're doing a darn good job right now, but there's room for improvement. And when we can take this message and take our products to these countries, our product was selected, our product was selected because of its sustainability initiatives. And that's really important to us. And it's important to meet our customers where they are. Luckily, we have lots of space in Saskatchewan, but we don't have a lot of people. And I'm going to a market right now that has 10 times the province's amount in a very small location. And it is imperative for us to meet our customers there and to tell this story because they're looking for it. We're understanding that the customer wants to know what goes into their bodies. They also want to know, where it was produced, how it was produced, and we get to share that story by going. That and the chance that we also get to learn from people that are there. That's the whole idea of Black Fox going to Dubai.
Thank you, Barb. And we have Marnell Jones from Mosaic, who is involved in producing some of the most sustainable potash fertilizer on earth.
Thank you, Premier. Try that. COP is really where decisions are made. It's where the conversations are had on defining issues of our time. And for Saskatchewan business, it's our opportunity to add our stories, our solutions, our ambitions to an important discussion. Mosaic believes the future of sustainable potash is right here in Saskatchewan. As Premier mentioned, Saskatchewan potash is already made with 50% fewer emissions than some of our global competitors. Fertilizer is an essential ingredient to global food production and in a way that supports society's climate goals, and how and where we make it truly matters. Mosaic aims to be a net zero company company-wide by 2040 while pursuing our mission to help the world grow the food it needs. COP is an opportunity for us to learn and connect across industry, government, and communities while sharing our sustainability progress and ambitions with a global audience. We look forward to having conversations and making connections at COP28 that advance our net zero goal and our business priorities. We truly want to thank Premier Moe and the Trade and Export Development team who've provided the delegation with this opportunity and a global platform to tell our story. So thank you.
Thank you, Marnell. Mike Crabtree with the Saskatchewan Research Council. Was that a busy week?
I moved that because it was obvious I was going to knock that off. In fact, it probably still going to knock that off. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Crabtree. What does COP mean to SRC? It's an essential. It's not just a nice to have. COP is a marketplace for ideas, for technology, and for investment. And Saskatchewan has the opportunity to share ideas. We certainly can share our technology and be able to combine our thinking on technology with what's out there. And we certainly are looking for investment. If we look just at the critical minerals space, Saskatchewan has 23 of the 31 critical minerals that are going to change the world. They are essential for the net zero energy transition that we're working for. And the opportunities to have these conversations at COP28 with other organizations like ourselves, with potential customers. SRC has 1,500 customers in 22 countries, and that brings an awful lot of ideas, investment, and opportunities. We would not be where we are on the development of the Canada's first vertically integrated rare earths plant, or on the eVinci microreactor, if we were not able to access the oxygen, if you like, of being able to go to these types of events. And COP28 is is one of the largest of its kind.
Kevin, we'll turn it over to you. Kevin France is Assistant Deputy Minister with the Ministry of Trade and Export.
Thanks, Premier. And I think we'll start, as Premier mentioned, we have a video. Sorry, my apologies. Before I start, we'll start with the video of the pavilion, as Premier mentioned, so let's watch that quickly here. Okay, and thank you. And as Premier mentioned, the website is now live, sustainablesask.ca/COP28. And on the webpage, what you'll find, again, we'll start with the sustainability story, but you'll find the schedule of events for the pavilion. And we fully activated the pavilion to include, obviously, members around this table here, but as well as other partners and industries and organizations. For December, or actually starting today till December 2nd, the Blue Zone, or COP28, it's really where the chief negotiations are occurring. COP28 organizers have asked us not to program those first 3 days to allow that to occur. But starting on December 3rd, you'll start to see essentially the full activation of our pavilion, where we'll start with the Government of Saskatchewan, who will be providing presentations throughout the day on trade and investment opportunities in the province, as well as a panel on a Saskatchewan company that will present solutions to decarbonize the oil and gas sector through CCUS. December 4th, the panels will focus on microreactors, nuclear energy, critical minerals, carbon capture, utilization, storage, and Canada's first all-Canadian electric vehicle. December 5th, we'll have panel discussions that will focus on CCUS, uranium, oil and gas, and how to prepare a workforce for climate action. December 6th, panel discussions and events will focus on energy, mining, and critical minerals. December 7th is the official day of rest at COP28, and again, organizers have asked us not to program or have anything at the pavilion. Therefore, the delegation and companies will be traveling to Abu Dhabi for a suite of meetings with institutions, companies, and other officials. December 8th, back at the pavilion, panel discussions and events will focus on Indigenous participation in the energy sector and post-secondary institutions' plans for advancing sustainability. December 9th, we'll have panel discussions that will focus on sustainable growth, sustainable agriculture, energy and food security, and climate action from Canadian universities. And December 10th, we'll have panel discussions and presentations that will focus on climate-smart farming, research on reducing fuel, water, and waste logistics, and alternative proteins in the egg sector. And then finally, the last 2 days, December 11th and 12th, those are the final negotiations for COP28. Again, our pavilion will be activated, and we'll be having presentations focused on trade investment opportunities into the province of Saskatchewan. All that information can be found on our website, and look forward to steering traffic and seeing one at COP28. Thanks, Premier.
Great. Seeing no questions?
Start out. Can you speak to the frustrations of losing contracts now to Belarus, Russia, because they aren't doing the same things we are? We obviously took a big budget hit this week over this very issue. How are we winning this battle right now? Because it seems pretty difficult.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to recognize, Murray and Marno have some to add, but we operate in a global marketplace, and we're selling I would say not just a product, but a suite of products, and within each of those products, not only some of the highest quality products. In the case of potash, some of the highest quality potash that you can buy. It's competitively priced, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But we also have a sustainability story that many other areas of the world do not have. Same in agriculture, the same in the energy industry, the same with the uranium and nuclear power that we produce. And so when other countries aren't able to compete on all of those metrics, what will that come back to is a lower price for those products. And that ultimately can, at times, push the global price down, and we are in that global market. And so, is that a reason for us to pull back? And I won't speak for the potash companies, but us as a society or as a nation to pull back on the efforts and the initiatives that we have in producing those sustainable products? I don't think so. I think we should continue with the metrics and the goals and the targets that we had. You had mentioned Mosaic's target is to be net zero by 2040. We'll be part of that. There's power that comes from the provincial power grid that goes into use in the potash industry. And so I think we recognize we're in a global market. There's a number of metrics that customers will look at: price, quality, and the sustainability of how and I would not only the sustainability of the product, but how it's produced from an ethical perspective, I think is part of that conversation as well. When others can't match up on all of those fronts, you will see the price start to drop in some of the other producing areas. And, when it comes to food and energy security, there's still countries in this world that need it, regardless of the story that we strive to bring and will be telling here. But whatever you have to add.
I think we're committed to, thank you, committed to mining our potash responsibly, regardless of what our competitors do. We like to say that global potash production's kind of like a sport. We don't all play by the same rules. It's competitive, and we're out there to try and bring our products to the world. And we're doing what we can here at home to give the world the most sustainable potash, and we're doing a great job of it. And we're going to continue to produce ethically and sustainably produced potash and bring it to the world.
Do you think China and India are getting that message?
I think we're still in a place today where potash is potash to a global farmer. But I'm hoping things like COP will really allow us to differentiate ourselves with some of our competitors, where we can actually tell that sustainability story in a better way.
Can I ask, does anyone on the panel can answer this? With Saskatchewan hosting this pavilion, has that changed your decision to go to COP or your role there? What role has that played in what your plans are? Were you planning to go beforehand? What can you tell me about that? Maybe Marnell can start.
I'll start. Sure. I think that having an opportunity to be part of a delegation such as this, where we can come with a united voice and have a great presence from all of Saskatchewan to tell our variety of stories together, makes it a stronger message. Going alone isn't probably as helpful to our storytelling as when we do it together. So certainly the province providing us this platform is extremely useful and a great opportunity for all of us.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'd say the majority of the companies that are going to COP, SRC works with here in the province. I think, Chris, we don't work with you yet, but just wait. And so this gives us a great opportunity to be able to support our customers, support the companies we work with.
Well, I think the number one thing is by having our own pavilion and going together to really tell our story around food, fuel, and fertilizer, and really how sustainable we can do that for the world. It's the amplification of the message. And I mean, to me, conferences like this are kind of like having young kids. You usually got to repeat yourself 5 or 6 times before it really hits home. And so with the amount of presentations that are going to be telling the same story, I think that story hits home a lot harder and hopefully travels back to either their company or their country and leads to future optimism and opportunity for the province.
We were going anyway. And this just gives us another opportunity to get our message out. We are selling a product over there, and every chance we get to promote, showcase that is another opportunity for us to get in front of customers. So that's really critical for us. And this opportunity to have the province behind us, it's accreditation for someone small like us, because it shows that yes, we're doing a good job, but it's not just my mother saying we're doing a good job. It's everybody else that's behind us. And so we look at this as a win-win for us to be there at this point in time and have this opportunity to bring our customers to this pavilion and have them see what Saskatchewan can do.
And we should all listen to our moms. What I see as the role of the province in this is to facilitate and provide the opportunity for many companies and organizations in Saskatchewan to be able to tell the how. How are we producing potash? How are we producing the agri-food products that we have? How are we then processing those agri-food products into a higher value product and providing them to the world? What roles does Saskatchewan have with an organization like, whether it's the Saskatchewan Research Council or Global Institute for Food Security? What roles do those play in facilitating, measuring, and making essentially the industries that we have here more efficient, not just from a financial perspective and a quality quality of goods perspective, but from an environmental sustainability perspective as well. And so normally when we go on trade missions, we're talking about what we produce, the high quality product, why it's important in your energy and food security aspiration. This will be a little bit different in that we'll be talking about not only what we produce, but how we produce it in Saskatchewan from an environmental perspective. And it's a story that maybe we need to focus on a little more than we have in the next 10 years relative to the last 10.
Just looking at the list of participants for meeting room and companies using the space, just wondering how the government of Newfoundland or a Calgary law firm or Simon Fraser University will be telling the Saskatchewan story.
I think when you see other subnational governments, I see University from British Columbia, Simon Fraser University as well. Both our universities are going. I think on the day of rest, we're doing significant engagement with our post-secondary institutes. And as I say, any time that we're in an international market, we're working alongside our post-secondary institutes as well as those that have invested in our communities and in industries in Saskatchewan. It adds to the conversation. We're there not only as a province of Saskatchewan, but as a province of Saskatchewan within the nation of Canada. And so I think we're doing at least one panel. If I'm not mistaken, Jean Charest will be the moderator. I'll be one of the participants. Former Premier from British Columbia, Christy Clark, will be one of the participants. And Danielle Smith from Alberta will be one of the participants as well. And so a little bit of a cross-section from past and present and various areas of Canada. All we would do is in support as well, I would say, of the presence that Canada has here as well, as we are a province within the nation of Canada. And so we're always going to work, and in this case, we have a footprint in a pavilion. We've made that investment, but we're going to work with our provincial partners across the nation, as well as our provincial post-secondary institutes, as our post-secondary institutes aren't operating in isolation either. They're operating with, the University of Ag and Bioresources in Saskatoon is very closely operating on research initiatives with the University of Guelph, for example, two of the, I'll say the greatest ag universities in the world. Ranked 1 and 2, Saskatoon and then Guelph, of course. But I think Mike could speak as well. He said he had 1,500 customers in 22 countries around the world. And so we don't operate in isolation. And I would say in particular an exporting province and an exporting nation like Canada, we don't operate in isolation. And so where we can work with other provinces, we're going to. Where we can provide them the opportunity to strengthen their footprint at this conference, and maybe the next one they'll have a presence and we'll be present there. We're going to do that too. And ultimately, stronger communities, we always say, make for a stronger province. Stronger provinces make for a stronger nation, and that's the goal.
Is anybody sharing in the rent, or are you paying for the space and providing space as a courtesy to these other groups and these other governments?
I think we're paying for the space. I'm not aware of anyone that will be contributing at this point. I know for us to participate in the Canadian Pavilion, we would have to contribute. I think there was one reception they'd accepted us for. We said, we're hosting a reception in the pavilion that we have, so we won't be paying for that. That being said, there will be some interaction, certainly. Myself with Canadian ministers, and we're there in support of the Canadian delegation as well. And so this will be a Government of Saskatchewan initiative, and the intent here is to provide a platform not only for our industries, but for some of our research and development institutes like Saskatchewan Research Council, our post-secondary institutes, Sask Polytech, U of R, U of S, all coming along. A number of Indigenous delegations will be in attendance as well to provide that platform for each of them to tell the how of their story and how maybe that industry impacts their community, how they are producing the products in said industry, and ultimately, why we want to have at those levels additional conversations with like-minded industries around the world and find those synergies. And so we do that all the time on the trade side. Now we're doing it on the sustainability side.
Premier, do you plan to go into the blue zone and go to the...
Likely will, yeah. I think we have a couple of engagements in the blue zone. I think one Canadian engagement, I believe it's at the Emirati Pavilion, if I'm not mistaken. Kevin knows more what I'm up to than I do specifically, but we'll be in there on a number of different occasions, is my understanding.
And how much do you think this will cost in total?
Well, we have the costs that were out on this piece, which just off the top of my head, $765,000. I'll be going with a delegation of 5, including me, which is slightly smaller than we take on most of our trade missions, and then each of the delegations is paying for theirs.
Do you expect it'll go above $1 million?
Doubtful.
Okay.
But I shouldn't, I don't know that. As I said, the delegation that I'm bringing with myself is, we usually travel with between 5 and 7, 5 being at the low end, 7 being at the higher end. I believe we're going with 5, including myself this time. Partially because we have a number of other supports that are there, and this is about really providing that platform for everyone else, the other 50, 60 delegations that are along to tell their story.
Was there any discussions with maybe Alberta or other provinces to share some of these costs?
Yeah, we had looked at some of those partnerships and whatnot as we go along. Ultimately, we had to make decisions before we were able to get to those, and we're pretty happy with the intent on where we've landed, the size of delegation we have, and the opportunities that we have for various plenary sessions at the pavilion that we have, and it's through those plenary sessions that we are going to be able to really tell that story of how we are producing those products in the various industries. There's themes for each day, and so we'll roughly follow those themes as we go along. And this is new for us as a province. As I said, we've done trade mission after trade mission after trade mission, focusing on providing that food and energy security to so many around the world. This is talking about how we're producing those products from an environmental perspective. And we, you've heard me talk about it, and we need to do, I think, a more ambitious work in that space, more ambitious communication in that space, not only to our customers around the world, of which we're trying to achieve here, and providing that platform for organizations and industries to do that, but doing it to other Canadians as well. And so I think you're starting to see some of the work leading into COP28 arriving in our airports and such as we speak.
What do you expect the consequence to be for not collecting the carbon tax on electrical heating starting January 1st?
No consequence. I'm not expecting any consequence at all. I mean, we made the very same decision that the federal government made. They decided not to collect the carbon tax on heating oil, largely in Atlantic Canada. We decided not to collect the carbon tax on natural gas and now electricity for Saskatchewan families. So what's fair is fair. I'm not expecting any consequences whatsoever.
Is there a costing, sir?
A
costing of this one? It's pretty minimal given the fact we're dealing with northern heating. It's not like you're giving us like the entire electrical bill, but how much that will
as soon as we have one, we'll provide that. I don't have it right now, but it is much more minimal than what we've been discussing on the natural gas side.
And on the subject of costing related to the pavilion itself, my understanding is the figure you gave us for the fee. What's it costing, and the NDP, I think, asked this today, what's the costing of actually running the pavilion before and after? Is that separate, or can you give us a breakdown?
Well, I think the costing would be largely employees of the government of Saskatchewan that would be running the building. Is that correct? Yeah. So
that's correct, and we have an office in Dubai that's staffed with 3 staff who will be managing the pavilion.
Is there a figure related to how much it just costed? Basically, what, up $8 million?
Well, the incremental would be 0, I suppose, or maybe some incidentals. But as far as FTE costing, these are folks that are currently employed by the government of Saskatchewan. As you said, I think we have 3 in our office in Dubai. Some are traveling over with myself as part of our delegation of 5. You'll be one of those, Kevin. And again, this is this is about providing that platform for these folks that have joined us here today and many others to tell the how.
Just on the pavilion, like for costing, like the chairs and the walls and all that stuff, has the province purchased that, or is that rental equipment?
I was going to make the joke they're rented from Pivot Furniture, a Saskatchewan-based company, but maybe I'll let Kevin answer that question.
Yeah, that's all in cost for the space itself, plus the tables, the chairs, and everything else.
And I want to ask about the carbon tax as well from SaskPower. What happens, you had that agreement with the federal government, so SaskPower would collect it and then decide what to do with the money. Where's that at? Do you have full control of that aspect?
I'll have to check specifically to the announcement we made here today. As I said, what we've done is really mirrored an announcement that the federal government made around home heating oil. I would remind everyone, our stance has been clear from day one. We think the consumption-based carbon tax should be removed on everything for everyone. We also had made an offer to the federal government in order to take the entire, although we didn't agree with the whole carbon tax program, to take it in-house within the province so that we could properly and appropriately, return those dollars to Saskatchewan people on the consumption-based side. We made that offer, which was in excess of what the minimum was. And I would remind what the Supreme Court of Canada has stated is that the reason the federal government has the ability to do this is so that there is a minimum across the nation. So we made an offer specifically in excess of that minimum, which was rejected by the federal government. Unfortunately rejected, I would say, by the federal government, because if this was provincially administered, I think would most certainly be ways for us to have conversations on how to be fair to all Canadian families, including those in Saskatchewan, as opposed to the very unfair decision that the federal government had made around removing the carbon tax from home heating oil. I would remind one other thing, and some at this table would recall this. It's a number of years ago through a rural gasification project that it's the government of Saskatchewan and the people of Saskatchewan that brought natural gas into our rural farmyards and our communities. So the reason that we have natural gas in 85% of our home heating offerings is because we invested in it as Saskatchewan people, and so we certainly shouldn't be in any way punished for that by a decision that is made in a province far away.
Do you know what the average savings is going to be for someone who uses electricity?
We're just trying to ascertain as to not just what the average savings would be, but the percentage. Everyone uses electricity, not everyone uses electrical heat. And so we're trying to ascertain as to who uses electrical heat, what percentage of their heating bill roughly would be used for electrical heat versus everything else that they use. And so, as I said this morning, there's going to be a little bit of work to do here, some details to work out, of which we will do with SaskPower. And we will have this in place, we're anticipating by January 1st, so that those communities that have, predominantly electric heat, and I think Jim LeMeg had mentioned Black Lake, a few others throughout the northern parts of the province that are predominantly electric heat, they shouldn't be punished or shouldn't have to operate under a different environment just because they live in northern Saskatchewan versus Nova Scotia or Newfoundland.
And at COP, do you plan to meet with Federal Minister Stephen Guilbeault?
Sure, I think I am, yeah.
You are meeting with him?
Yeah, I think I'll meet with him. I'm not sure if it'll be a one-off meeting, or I think we're invited to an event where he has invited myself as well as other provincial representatives to an event or a supper or something like that. And I think I've reached out as well to Minister of Innovation, Minister Champagne as well. And so if he has time, we'll try to get together as well. National President of the National Métis Council, Cassidy Caron, will be there. I talked to her at the MNS Legislative Assembly the other day. We'll look to meet with her. Talked to Perry Bellegarde the other day. He'll be there as well. So a number of various different levels. I mentioned a few previous and sitting premiers that will be in attendance as well. So a number of different various levels, I think, of political representatives from today and past days will be there. But yeah, the federal government, Minister Guilbeault and I think Minister Champagne will both be there, and I'll look for the opportunity to meet them both. Scheduled to meet one, and I think we're trying to work out a schedule for the other.
What do you plan to tell him?
Oh, I think we'll have a good discussion on, the opportunities that we have. I'd invite him to our booth to come and maybe listen to a plenary session on, how a province in the nation that he represents is producing some of the most sustainable products on earth, products that people need to have, not products that maybe we want to have. When you think about, food, fuel, and fertilizer, you think about countries as they adjust their supply chains, the aspirations that they have for energy and food security for the people that they represent. Saskatchewan has a great role to play in that. And so for, people that need potash fertilizer, for example, you should buy the most sustainable potash fertilizer that you can find on earth, and it's produced right here in Saskatchewan. For people that are buying field peas, for example, you should buy the most sustainable field peas that you can find on earth, and in Saskatchewan, those peas are produced with a 92% lower carbon content on a per ton basis than the next 7 largest providers that you can find in the world. And so we have a tremendously strong story to sell in Saskatchewan. We're going to tell it through videos. We're going to tell it through the folks that are actually involved and invested in those industries at plenary sessions. And what the government's goal is to facilitate that entire discussion between the folks that have a footprint and an interest in Saskatchewan and the other 200 countries that will be in attendance at COP28.
I don't remember Saskatchewan ever being so interested or involved in a particular COP conference before, so why this one in particular?
A number of reasons, and we've attended a number of COPs before. I attended one in Marrakesh, Morocco, when I was Minister of Environment a number of years ago. It was either just before or just after that. Premier Wall, along with then Environment Minister Herb Cox, attended the one in France, I believe Paris, where there was a number of negotiations that went on there. We were in the one last year as well, in Egypt, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The one last year was, I guess, a smaller venue, and it was a little more difficult, and probably if we had tried to do something like we're doing this year, last year, would have struggled, quite frankly, and would have been a fair amount more expensive to do anything like what we're doing this year, last year, just because of the footprint of the hosting city and the area. And I would say that the relationship that the province of Saskatchewan has formed with the Emirates and the people, the government, and those involved in organizing this conference has a role to play as well. This is one, if not the first, one of the very early conferences where, for instance, the energy sector is going to be involved. And I think that's of paramount importance. The energy sector globally does have emissions. When we look at the energy sector in Saskatchewan, we're producing some of the most sustainable product of its kind that you can find on earth. We have, in that video, is an individual with Whitecap Resources. To my knowledge, they're if not the only, one of the very few net zero oil companies that are operating in North America. What a tremendous opportunity to share some of their innovation around enhanced oil recovery with other oil producers in other areas of the world. Strathcona will be coming. Substantial investments that they've made in the thermal sites out between North Battleford and Lloydminster, dropping methane emissions by some 65%. And as you can see, this is going to be a little bit of a different focus. This conference, when I'm speaking about our methane emissions and our net zero oil company, than maybe that we bring to a traditional trade mission. But it's also important for us to bring this part of the Saskatchewan production story as well. So we haven't done it in quite this way before at a COP, although we've attended a number of COPs and we had officials at last year's COP, but it would have, the price would have got quite a bit higher, and we maybe have been able to establish a very strong relationship with the government and the United Arab Emirates and the organizers of this conference this year to really make an impact with the industries that we have that align with not only the conference perspectives and goals, but align also with some of the conversations that we've had with the hosting country as well. And we have a trade relationship with the Emirates as well that I think has been increasing in recent years.
You're going to be one of hundreds of these pavilions. How are you going to stand out? How are you going to attract the people that you want to attract? And who do you think you'll attract?
Well, I think we will. First of all, invitations are going out, and you'll see the QR code on the screen here. We have business cards. Invitations are going out to many of the folks that we've met with, either myself at the political level, myself alongside industries over the last number of trade missions that we've had, whether they be in Japan, South Korea, whether they be in a number of the European countries, or whether they be some of the contacts that we have throughout North America as well. And so the Ministry of Trade and Export Development also very focused on the relationships that other ministers have formed in their trade missions, that our trade offices have formed in our countries of interest, and we have 9 of those trade offices operating around the world. And so the invitations and the information of what we're doing at COP28 is being actually probably being disseminated as we speak, because we were waiting for the website to go live. In addition to that, when we're on the ground in COP, we'll be distributing the QR code as well to many of the folks that we have. And everything I just said, each of these individuals at this table, as well as the 50+ other organizations that are coming, have their contacts globally as well. And this, I think, speaks to what the government is trying to do, is to provide that centralized platform and that opportunity for those organizations, companies, industries that have an interest in Saskatchewan that are joining us on this mission, to have that central location to come in and to share that story with folks that you've talked with over the last 3 to 5 years, folks that Barb has talked to. She said she's already doing business in the Emirates, and this QR code might be something that she'd be sending to her customers or her prospective customers to share the story. And not only is this a product, but it's ultimately a product that's produced like this.
Sorry, a couple more.
Sorry, Chris, you had your hand up first, then we'll come back to you, Jeremy. You can, or were you just stretching?
Okay, Stephen Gobo there's been reports he plans to announce the federal government's oil and gas emissions cap.
Oh, that would be unfortunate.
Right, so how do you think that's going to shake out if he does do that?
Well, I think it's like many of the other policies. And listen, we're not going overseas to fight or squabble over domestic policy or national policy. We're in an international market, and we most certainly are. Saskatchewan are Canadians as well. And so what that will be a national policy that will only survive if they're able to win another election. I think it's an ill thought out policy, like many of the others that not only Stephen Guilbeault, but Jonathan Wilkinson, Justin Trudeau, and others have brought forward. And a number of them have actually been deemed unconstitutional. Most recently was the plastics ban that brought in by Mr. Guilbeault, but we had the Bill C-69 previous to that. And serious questions around the carbon tax ruling now as well, with some of the carve-outs that are currently before the Senate and have been passed by policy by the federal government. So it would be unfortunate. I understand the aspirations of Minister Guilbeault, but I don't think the consequences of the reality of the policy have fully been explored by the federal government in a policy such as this. Listen, there is a transition that is happening. We understand that. Saskatchewan most certainly is part of that transition, and doing so in the most affordable way that we can, in lowering the emissions that we directly have control over. But also, I think it's important for us to realize, and why we're participating in this conference, is Saskatchewan also is producing some of the most sustainable products that you can find on Earth. I would go back to a time not long ago when we had the German Chancellor that had arrived here and had asked for access to some of Canadian LNG. He was told there was no business case and moved on. The consequence of that reality was not that Germany didn't buy any LNG. They just didn't buy it from here. They bought it 2 weeks later from the United Arab Emirates and Qatar. And so you might think you're making the right decision, but you're not taking into account all of the consequences of the decision ultimately that you're making. So if you hear what I had said a few minutes ago, that if you need a heavy crude product like we produce here in Saskatchewan, if that's the product ultimately that you need and desire and need to buy, you should buy it in Saskatchewan, because it has 25% lower. It has a 25% lower emissions profile than anything else you can find on Earth. You can buy it from a net zero oil company. And so as you're choosing the products that you are buying, you should choose not only the quality of product you want, not only the price point that you're comfortable with, but you should also choose the most sustainable product that you can find. And in the products that we produce in Saskatchewan, I can very proudly say they're the most sustainable of their kind that you can find on Earth. That's the story that we'll bring to COP28. That's the story, and the consequences of that reality are what are ill thought out, or poorly thought out at the very least, in a blanket oil emissions ban, which ultimately is code for blanket oil production cap.
And just on the carbon tax, the Prime Minister was asked today about your decision. He says he expects provinces and companies to follow the law. Just how would you respond to that?
Oh, we've been pretty clear on what we're going to do. We'll follow through with that.
So I guess not following the law then is...
No, we're going to follow the Saskatchewan law. We have a piece of a bill before the legislature here that says that we're not going to collect the carbon tax on natural gas and very shortly electrical heat. So we're going to choose to follow the Saskatchewan law. Yeah, I thought you had a question.
Yeah. The other day, Smith announced that they reached their methane reduction 3 years ahead of schedule. She asked for some recognition from the federal government. Saving captive elephants at zoos in Canada. Why do you expect any different for Saskatchewan, how we treat Alberta?
Well, I risk delving into a story about zebras. I would say Premier Smith is very right in asking the federal environment minister for some recognition of what Canadian companies have achieved, not just Albertan companies, but what Canadian companies have achieved. Relative to 2015, I mentioned the investments by Strathcona, formerly Serafina, and others up in the thermal area between North Battleford and Lloydminster. In that area and through those investments, which are billions of dollars, by the way, we've been able to reduce our emissions, our methane emissions in the industry by some 65% relative to 2015. What would be, I think, appropriate is for a federal environment minister to in any way acknowledge that there is no other oil industry, to my knowledge, in the world that has been able to reduce their methane emissions by 65% relative to 2015. But there is in Saskatchewan, and I think Premier Smith was alluding to some of the similar initiatives that have occurred on the other side of the border in the province of Alberta. And I would remind the Minister of Environment federally and nationally that these are Canadian companies. They aren't exclusively Saskatchewan or Alberta companies, and are companies that he has a duty to tell the story about. To tell the story about, whether it be on the global stage and about how they are producing the products that they are. And in Saskatchewan's case, we're producing those products more sustainably than anywhere else on Earth. And it's a story that we most certainly are going to tell. And again, I just would say that we are at COP28 in support of Canada. We'll have, our various differences of opinion on different policies that the federal government will be bringing forward. Ultimately, they're going to have to withstand another election for those policies to come to fruition. But when we go to the international markets, we are Canadians. The companies that are joining the Saskatchewan delegation there are Canadian companies. I would say proud Canadian companies, and are producing some of the most sustainable products that you can find in the world.
Thanks, everybody. That concludes our time.
Thank you.